I just want to say before starting this video, I am in no way possible a South Park hater. I've seen every single last season of South Park, and I've tried to watch every single episodes except for the ones that are banned. And along the way with that path, I ran into some pretty meh going on alright to going on to bad episodes. So, I've been going back and watching a lot of South Park recently, and I decided to make a list of some of my least favorite episodes of the whole series to bring to you guys. Maybe some of you actually have a curiosity to go watch these things to see actually how bad they are, and to be completely honest, go watch them. Like, you can go form your own opinion. That's completely up to you. But from my judgment, and from all these South Park episodes I've seen, these 5 I would recommend to skip if you seriously do not want to waste your time. So with that said, I am not a South Park hater, I'm a South Park lover, and let's get into this. Number 5 is Season 4, Episode 5, Pip. If you are a South Park enjoyer, you've probably heard of the episode or have watched the episode titled Pip. You probably even know who the character Pip is. He got killed in Season 10's deleted special, but he is still very present during the early years of South Park. This episode is plain boring and very uninteresting for a lot of reasons. It focuses in specifically on Pip and his family and relationships in England where the boys do not exist. No Stan, no Kyle, no Cartman, no Kenny. None of that, it's just Pip. South Park did learn from this episode when making Butter's very own episode, which I was going to talk about, but then realized there actually is not that much to talk about. It's just a really good episode. I recommend you watch it if you haven't seen it in a while or just want to watch something new. But before Butters, we got Pip's special, and this one was very, very lackluster. And honestly, something that just really did not stick with me and is very, very forgettable. Number 4, we have Season 2, Episode 1, Terrence and Phillip, Not Without My Anus. I am not an OG South Park fan, but even I have to say, I was really disappointed by Season 2's intro episode. If you don't know, when this episode first came out, people were complaining because they wanted to see the Part 2 to the Season 1 finale, which kind of led to what people believe was going to be Cartman's dad's origin or who he actually is. And Matt and Trey completely pushed that aside to make a joke episode for Terrence and Phillip, Not Without My Anus, that was completely teased in the final episode of Season 1. But I do not believe that anybody knew this was coming. And to be completely honest, it's a kind of nice surprise. But at the same time, for early days of South Park, when it's usually not as funny as it is now, this episode kind of sucks, honestly. It's basically toilet humor throughout the entire thing. If that's your thing, this episode is probably for you. But for me, this one just really did not hit the mark. I wish they just kept going with Cartman's storyline because that was a lot more interesting than this episode. For number 3, I have Jack Offaursaurs. I have looked at a lot of lists for worst South Park episodes, and this episode is usually number 1. For a lot of reasons. First of all, this episode is really unfunny. Second of all, the Jack Offaursaurs are so annoying that it's basically unwatchable. They make this episode completely forgettable, but also at the same time, Matt and Trey did a really good job at making these things really annoying, but it kind of led to the episode's downfall. And the third reason is also just because this episode is really uninteresting. There were some good episodes in between this episode, but just this one really fell off. No wonder a lot of people dislike this episode, but still, I do not believe that this is the worst episode of South Park. At my number 2 is A Million Little Fibers from Season 10, Episode 5. The reason I say this one really weirdly is because I've actually seen a lot of people actually really like this episode, and I just cannot understand why. This episode's reuse of the same joke of Oprah's parts is really unfunny, if I'm going to be completely honest. The Scottish accent that they have is a funny concept, I do admit, but it's still nothing that ever got me laughing. And the reuse of animation as well for that one specific scene where it's just a close-up is so unbelievably unfunny. You wouldn't believe how absolutely disappointed I was with this episode, because I'm not the biggest fan of Towley, but I think that the idea of bringing Oprah Winfrey to talk to Towley about this actual real event could have been funny, but then it just wasn't. This is an episode that I will forever skip on any rewatch, and if it's on TV, I'm just going to change the channel to something else. This episode, season 10, almost really made me just want to stop watching South Park. This one was so, absolutely punched to the gut because of how bad it was. But I continued, and there's actually one more that's even worse than A Million Little Fibers. And that episode will come to you in just a second. I'm going to do a Terrence and Phillip, not without my anus thing, and say that an honorable mention is the episode titled Funny Bot. This is another episode that shows up on a lot of people's top 5 worst South Park episodes of all time. And I completely understand why, because even though that it's called Funny Bot, it really just is not that funny. It's pretty repetitive, too, with its joke making, and very uninteresting. But the reason why this one just doesn't make the list is because the beginning part with Jimmy is actually an interesting idea. It just really falls off in the second and third act of this one. But getting back to it, thank you for sticking around for that. The worst South Park episode, in my personal opinion, my number 1 is Turd Burglars, Season 23, Episode 8. I don't really know where to start with this one, and I think I'm going to take the most amount of time throughout the video to discuss this one episode. Giving a little history, personally, I don't actually consider Season 23 to be a season of South Park, because it's so focused on Integrity Farms, and then all of a sudden they realize that just doesn't work, and then completely switches around to a new thing. And this one is supposed to be for the ladies, as the episode in the very beginning promptly says. But even though Integrity Farms is not even a part of this episode absolutely sucks. The whole idea of the turd burgling is that the boys take other people's crap and then they give it to women who wanna... I don't know if I want to say that. Insert it up their butt to make them look pretty or something like that. And this one is so unbelievably unfunny, uninteresting, so bland that this episode, even though that we're so close to season 26, which is the newest season, I almost completely gave up on South Park. I was so done after season 23. And Turd Burglars was a very hard-hitting episode that made me just want to quit. But I didn't, because I do know that seasons get better. But this one is unforgivingly bad. They were trying to do an idea, it just really did not work, and I think that's a reason why a lot of these episodes are on this list. They have a nice idea, a somewhat alright idea, but then just execute it really poorly. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot more good episodes than there are bad ones. I very much recommend that you go make your own opinions on all these episodes and go watch the whole series. Why not? What else are you going to do? Thank you for watching. This one is a bit longer than some of my other videos, but this was an interesting topic to me and I just thought I'd share. Okay, bye.